All right, one of the things that I love about traveling are road trips. I love road trips. I love long road trips. It gives you the time and the opportunity to think and sort through your thoughts. And when you're not behind the wheel, oftentimes you're distracted with this and that, so to speak. The this and that's of life. But when you're driving, you pretty much have the opportunity to have your focus, if you will, on just your thoughts, and that's it. And as I drive here on I think this is the M1, headed towards Budapest. As I drive, I find myself thinking about this trip that I'm on. And you've all heard the expression, the trip of a lifetime. Oh, it'll be the trip of a lifetime. And whenever I hear that expression, I kind of chuckle, because if I look back over the years, I've had, my goodness, I've had at least a dozen trips of a lifetime. And it's just amazing. It just blows my mind. It blows my mind. I was thinking about this trip here, and September 17th, just shy of 3 months ago, I got on a plane headed towards Budapest via JFK and Moscow. And I gotta be honest, I never could have imagined the trip that was about to unfold over these last 3 months. And as I drive along, I find myself reflecting back on the trip, and I find myself remembering when I arrived in Budapest, and there was that woman, and my apology, I forget her name, that rented me the apartment. Remember the apartment that had the noise of the people working on the basement, and I remember that all too well. And then I remember going to Krakow. And just a wonderful time that I had in Krakow, taking the tour of the old town and seeing my colleague Joanna and her daughter, and going to that tourist attraction in Krakow, and then finding my way back down to Budapest on that unforgettable trip, that plane that was delayed, coming back down, and then there was that whole excursion down to Croatia that found me taking a side trip to where was it? Mostar. Going down and going to Zagreb, experiencing Zagreb for the very first time. That was that in and by itself was really something else. Zagreb for the first time, and then and then going to Split. I remember Split, and going from Split down to Dubrovnik via Mostar, and Mostar was one of the unexpected experiences. I mean, Mostar, I'd heard about it before, but to actually go there and walk the streets of that small little magical place was just unbelievable for me. And then it was down to Dubrovnik and walking the walls of Dubrovnik, and sharing a pizza with you that Sunday afternoon, and talking to that old man from Cleveland that was on a cruise. I got an email from his wife not too long ago, and she told me, bless that man's heart, she told me that meeting me and doing that video was the highlight of his entire trip. Can you imagine that old timer takes a cruise to the Adriatic, and the best memory of the entire trip is going live on or doing a video on Tom TV talking about his beloved Cleveland Indians. You know, and then it was back to where was it? It was back to Budapest for a while. And you know, just the time spending in Budapest, you know, the For Sale pub and going to the Parliament, doing that video of the Parliament, and walking along the Danube at night. You know, absolutely incredible. And then, how can we forget the whole trip to Portugal? Thank you, Edit. I say thank you, Edit, because Edit, I was going to go to Malta, and I should go to Malta at some point in time, I'm sure. But Edit told me, go to Portugal, go to Lisbon. And Lisbon I did. And, you know, I went to Lisbon, and that was, 10 days, something like that. And I've seen, Portugal, you know, the Algarve. I've been to the Algarve now. And, you know, you actually, you lose, I don't even remember the names of some of the places that I went to on this trip. But, you know, the Algarve, all those little towns, sitting in front of that little cafe, listening to those people play music, you know, play their instruments, and walking along the beach there. And then who can forget Emmanuel, you know, Emmanuel, who painted the portrait of my dad, and having dinner with a Portuguese family on a Sunday night in their dining room, you know, having dinner with, you know, chicken and potato chips, I think it was, and what have you. But you know, that was definitely one of the highlights of the trip. And then who can forget the date? You know, the Lisbon date night that I had with the beautiful lady from Brazil. That was a wonderful experience in and by itself. And then, of course, there was Porto. You know, going to Porto, and that whole experience in Porto, just incredible, absolutely incredible. Sometimes I have to pinch myself to make sure that I'm not dreaming, you know. But anyway, and then you know, wrapping it up, going back over to wrapping it up and going back to Budapest, and then down to Zagreb, you know, via the thermal bath hotel, and Zagreb, and then over to Slovenia, and last night into Vienna, and you know, the trip's not over yet. It's winding down, that's for sure. Trip is starting to wind down, and I will be here in Budapest for a couple nights, and then from Budapest it's down to Athens. I mean, I'm going to Athens. You know, who would have thought, you know, on September 17th when I boarded that plane for Europe, that Athens would be on the itinerary, let alone meeting a lovely lady named Mary. And you know, I hear when I am looking up stuff about Greece and Athens, time and time and time again, I just hear how warm and friendly and beautiful the people are in Greece, and I'm really looking forward to that. So that's going to be a wonderful experience. And then going to Iceland. I mean, Iceland. Let that roll around in your head. You know, I am going to Reykjavik, Iceland. Is that incredible or what? So it's to say that it's a trip of a lifetime. It's it is the trip. It is a trip of a lifetime. And but I find myself thinking back to other trips that I've taken, and there was a trip that I took with Lorena years ago, and I remember that whole trip, going to Holland and down to Italy and all that with Lorena, and that was an incredible trip. And the trip I took to New Zealand, the trip I took down to New Zealand was New Zealand and Australia, absolutely incredible. And I just got off the you'd say you just got off the phone, but I just got off the messenger, I guess. I just got off the messenger with Michelle. Remember Michelle? I met her in Ravin. And Rochelle and I did a weekend excursion to the lakes of Italy last year. And she has a home just maybe 90 minutes or whatever, an hour north of Brisbane on the Australia Sunshine Coast. So she's invited me down to visit her this coming winter, I guess, or this winter, it would be the way to say it. She invited me down this winter to what do you call it? To Australia. So it's a really an interesting life, I guess is the word to say it. A blessed life, a fortunate life. But anyway, so those are just some of the type of thoughts that go through my mind as I drive along here on this way back to my adopted hometown of Budapest. So have a great day. All right.